I got a little bit of a different angle with the camera today where I'm able to be in the shot right to begin with. A couple notes came to me the last time and said, we didn't see enough of you in the shots. We only saw your hands like way back in the beginning when you were doing YouTube videos. Wasn't even doing live streams back in the day. I was just doing YouTube videos. But some of you that follow me on Facebook as well know that recently took a trip down to the South, went all the way down to Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee. And I had a traveling partner with me. Susie rode along with and provided some great company and some great insights as kind of checked out the area down there for the possibilities of a new workshop. And some of you that saw the Facebook posts know that I came across a city called Middleborough, Kentucky, and they embraced the namesake of the Magic City. And I shared some pictures of that on Facebook. And some of the locals from Kentucky and Tennessee knew about that area already. But I also posted a reel just recently to show the beauty of that area down there. What a great place that would be for a workshop. No decisions made yet, but really would be a spectacular place to set up a workshop and maybe have some open windows with the tree lines behind and just kind of really give you a chance to not only appreciate what you learn in the classroom, but also kind of like when we were kids. You remember when we were children and sitting in the classroom, especially at the beginning of the school year or at the end of the school year, we would be sitting there. And if there were any open windows, we'd find ourselves looking out the open windows and distracted by anything that happened out there. So hopefully that doesn't become the case if the next workshop has a beautiful backdrop of some of those tree-lined mountains that you've seen in that reel. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous space. Susie kept saying as we're riding through these different terrains, traveling through all those areas, she said, it feels like I'm in a postcard. And any of you that have traveled or lived down in Kentucky, Tennessee, down in that area, and you know those windy roads, just traversing through those beautiful mountain scapes with all the changing of the leaves. I had to remind myself that I was driving so that I didn't, bump into somebody or do something else because it's so distracting, so much beauty down there. But at any rate, let's get to the task at hand. And I have to apologize as well. Ended up tucking that trip in and foregoing the follow-up on this live stream, part 2 of some of the servicing points, the critical optimization areas of the Singer 201-2. I know that Jenny in particular, part of my leadership team, had shared a picture, and I shared it in the last live stream, where she had a big screen TV as a backdrop, and then she had her 201-2 right in the front and was kind of going step by step with me as I was doing some of the servicing on that machine. And so we're going to pick it up where we dropped off the last time. And again, if anyone had their machine all set up and they were like, nothing happened on Tuesday, nothing happened on Saturday, or, whatever, I apologize for that. But really was looking at the timing of getting that trip in down to the South, recognizing that around Thanksgiving would be a problem. There probably wouldn't be any, it'd be chaotic down there. All the families coming into Kentucky, Tennessee to visit. And then also I thought you can't push it off until December because then you have Christmas. So there was just that little window to get in there and to check it out. And I didn't have a single negative feeling about that area down there. It just felt really right. I felt like I had been a part of the South for a long time. People were friendly. I didn't get called Yankee. Didn't get called Yankee once, by any of the folks down there. They seemed like real kind, warm, nice people. And it's kind of like when I came to Oconto, I really was more of a square peg in a round hole, but I quickly integrated into that community, and lots of sadness when I stepped away from Oconto and closed the workshop there several weeks ago. So I have no doubt that we'll quickly get integrated into the Kentucky area, and be one of them before you can hiccup. So, anyway, let's move over here now and take a look at what we've got going on. And I hope I don't bump the camera in a weird way or anything like that. Now, this is the machine that we were working on the last time. This is the machine we were working on, and I showed you a number of things on this machine. At that point, when we did the last live stream, we had this machine tilted back. I was showing you how to remove the pedestal feet and get all of that old grease off of there, or in some cases, just deal with the fact that there was no grease and that there was metal to metal crashing against each other on the worm gears on the bottom. And if you didn't see that live stream, you can watch it after this live stream and just get a feeling for the critical service points. Now, after I did that live stream, I did additional work on this machine as well. And I'm going to show you the bottom of the machine as best as I can and just kind of give you an idea of what I did after that live stream. Let's see here. I'm still getting used to this temporary workshop. So if I seem a little bit awkward, just understand that I'm kind of not in my element yet. So before I tilt this back and show you the bottom and kind of recap what I did there, this may be something you haven't seen before, these components. And I'm just going to check my camera shot with different lighting options real quick to see which one is going to be the clearest. That's not too bad. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good option. Let me see if I can get that other one set the same way. Okay. So what I wanted to, and I'll be focusing on this in just a little bit, but first of all, I wanted to show you what I found. So these are all components of the Raceway for the 201-2. All components that need to be properly restored and cleaned and also checked as well. This is going to be basically our bobbin case in the Raceway. These are all parts of it. Retaining feed dogs as well. And on this other machine over here, I'll actually remove those items so you can remove them with me and know how to get them off. And then once we properly cleaned this 201-2, we will go ahead and reassemble it so you're comfortable there. But this is an area I'm going to get really, really close to show you all the gunk in there. It's just absolutely unbelievably filthy. And this is the brain center, again, for the 201-2. This is the brain center. And so the thread that should be passing through a properly tuned and serviced area is passing by all of this gunk, all of this buildup in there. And it really can inhibit the flow of that thread as it's trying to create that stitch. Hopefully you can see that clearly, just how much gunk is underneath there. And obviously, a sewing vac or a mom and pop type operation is never going to take the time, nor would they necessarily have the knowledge in how to tear apart this this hook assembly system in here and then properly clean it and then restore it again. That's what we're going to be going over today in this live stream, along with kind of recapping some things as well. And so I hope you find it helpful. I hope you also find it enlightening to realize that the areas that you can't see, again, this area would be covered by all of these components. And one would not have a clue how bad off this area, in fact, is. Try to get really, really close here. And I'm guessing when you take apart your 201-2, the hook system, you're going to find that it's just as bad as this or even worse. I've had hook systems that have had probably about 2 millimeters of buildup down in this area that should be absolutely spick and span. So you may be shocked when you disassemble yours after watching this live stream and find what you discover underneath all those components. So, all right, let me do this first of all. We'll kind of go over some of the stuff that I did off camera. Let's see if I can move this carefully off of the bed. All right. We're going to tilt this one back. And this one, again, if you didn't watch that first live stream, this machine came from Nevada and belongs to Roni Link. I'm just going to double check my notes because I've been away from the machine for a little bit. Yeah, yep. This is from Roni Links from Nevada, and you'll be able to tell right away the difference on the bottom of here. I'm going to kind of tilt it back a little bit. See if we can tilt it back to a safe location. Let's see here. It's a problem. These wires do get in the way just a little bit. Maybe I'll do it the same way I did it before. Let's do this. Give me just a second here. We'll tilt it back so you can see it more easily. And then I don't stress those wires either. And I don't know how many in the audience right now have a 201-2 already. I know many folks will end up picking one up after they've seen one of the live streams of what this machine is capable of doing. Let's see if we can get a good shot of the bottom of the machine now. And it's going to look quite a bit different than it did the last time you saw it. Let me just hold that there for a second. My parts are getting knocked around. I'll move them over to the other side. There we go. So if you were a part of the live stream the last time, you would have seen a lot of caramelization, a lot of gunk built up on this lower drive shaft on the bottom. We also took these pedestal feet off on both sides and we cleaned them up completely, and then we re-greased them as well. And the other things that I've done since then is I've done additional cleanup on the varnishing across this rocker arm up here. I've done all the lubrication points. There's multiple lubrication points on the bottom of this machine. Some of the ones that are missed most often are going to be right on the ends right here. During the operation of the machine, this rocker arm is going to be rotating back and forth about 2 millimeters. And so you've got to make sure that you lubricate these areas on the ends of the rocker arm right there. And I showed you in the other live stream, this is your feed dog drop. You want to get this opened up and get this so that it's free moving. So your feed dogs are moving up and down properly. And then all of these parts have to be cleaned and lubricated as well. And then once you're ready to get them back into the up position, you just rotate this back up again and then just screw this back in. And you always lube these points as well inside of there also to make sure that they're going to be in proper alignment. There we go. We've got lubrication points over here on the inside of here, right there. Lubrication point right there. Additional lubrication point here, in here, right over here, in here, down over here, on the bottom of this rocker as well.
We've got another one over here. It's kind of hard to see, but we've got a rocker right down there as well. That has to be lubricated. So I always say the easiest way to tell right away, as you're looking at the bottom of the machine and you gently move the balance wheel, you'll be able to see what's rocking and what's moving. And whatever's rocking and moving, you'll want to make sure that you put 1 to 2 drops of oil. Don't saturate it in oil. Just lubricate those rocking and pivoting points. And you can see just a little bit. Probably can get it with this tool right here. Just a little bit of that fresh grease that's worked its way out here. And this particular grease, I ended up coloring it green. Again, when you take these off for the first time, you'll probably be shocked at what you find underneath these pedestal feet. They tend to be the most neglected part of the 201. Okay, so you've had a chance to see the bottom again, just kind of a recap, talking a little bit about the lubrication points. Obviously, when you have it down like this, you check all of these cams as well, and make sure that the screw points are nice and snug. As with this one right here, any screw points, just do a quick check on those to make sure that they're nice and tight. Okay, let me tilt this back up. And those of you that don't know, I'm temporarily in Minnesota right now, and Susie has allowed me to set up a temporary workshop. That's what you're seeing over here. And I've got all these machines on these tables, and Susie said they're rated for a very heavy weight, but every time I kind of move the machine and I see the table rock a little bit, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope that these things don't take a tumble. I'll grab them real quick if they try to. All right, let me get these parts back in place so I don't lose anything. And we're going to shift over to this other machine. And take a look and see exactly how you get all of these components out of the 201-2. And then we'll come back to this machine. We'll start cleaning these, and then we'll reassemble this Raceway. All right, let me try to shift over here now. And yes, I did find, I don't know if Kevin and Doreen are in the live stream or not, but I found my Iowa corn can cooler. I think these are called coolers. And so I had to get this back into the scene. Everything else from the workshop is in storage right now, but I at least have my can cooler that Kevin and Doreen brought to me from Iowa when they brought the machines out for service, and then when they picked them up and brought them back again. So I'm back in the Diet Coke mode again during the live stream. So it's starting to feel a little bit more normal, but still, it's not my regular workshop space. All right, let's pivot over here real quick. I'm going to show you a couple things on this machine over here. See if I can bring the camera over without disconnecting anything. So this is another 201-2, and this one is from, let me see here. This is going to be from the Madison, Wisconsin area. It's going to be from the Madison, Wisconsin area, and was actually dropped off at the workshop by Carol Johnson. So this is going to be my next machine I've got to focus on. And the main complaint from Carol about this 201-2 was the power. And when you look at the setup of how someone wired it, you get a good idea of why it might be having power issues. This wiring here is probably right around 8 gauge wiring. It's way too much for this machine. And so the wiring is holding the machine back. And then they have a cross pollination of wiring as well, where they've got some 18 gauge mixed with 8 gauge. It's just a hodgepodge setup. But I won't focus on all that right now. We'll do that in another live stream. What I wanted to show you is another thing that I wanted to cover in the last live stream. And I should ask real quick if you can hear me okay, because the microphone is way over there. Let me move the mic a little bit. See how far I can move it safely. If anyone has trouble hearing me, just let me know. I just kind of relocated the microphone a little bit since I'm down on the other end of the workbench right now. You kind of see the setup that I've got right now. I've got Ronnie's over here. We're going to be focusing on reassembling that. And I've got Carol's over here. The other thing I wanted to cover that I didn't have time to cover in the other live stream was servicing this part of the machine as well. I showed the motor. I showed the bottom of the machine. We're going to be focusing on the Raceway. Now we're going to be focusing on this a little bit as well. See if I can get this open and we'll take a look at this. So a standard screwdriver, that one's going to be a little bit too big. A standard screwdriver, you can remove, or not remove, you can loosen this screw that holds the stop action in place. Give it about 3 or 4 turns, and then you can go ahead and turn it counterclockwise. And you should be able to remove this. And you'll also remove the clutch as well. Sometimes easier just to pull this out a little bit, and then that kind of displaces it naturally. So if you've never taken this off of your 201 before, this is basically your clutch release, so you can wind a bobbin, and this is going to be your stop action right here. And these all need to be serviced and cleaned properly. But the real thing I wanted to show you is to remove this balance wheel and to show you underneath what oftentimes is neglected or forgotten. First of all, the balance wheel itself is not just a standard balance wheel. It's got, because of the direct drive motion of the motor, it's got the equivalent of a secondary clutch that rotates like this when that motor is engaged, so that the balance wheel engages smoothly against the worm gears. And we'll take a closer look at the worm gears. But to give you an idea of what condition this is in, this should all be shiny right there. And you can see right now, it's just a filthy, filthy mess. So we'll be focusing on cleaning this up. But first of all, we're going to take a look in here to see what we see. I don't see if I have another. Let me grab a secondary light so you can see in there a little bit better. I'm kind of looking over at the monitor across the room, and I'm hoping you can see what's in there. So the gear on the bottom here, the gear on the bottom is coming right off of the motor. And then what happens when you slide the balance wheel into place, this secondary clutch gear right here interlaces with the gear that's inside of there coming off of the motor, and that's what's going to power this main shaft when you engage the motor. So all of that has to be absolutely clean and tidy in order for the machine to operate properly. And right now, the customer says that this is not moving well. I'm guessing that if we just engage the motor, even without the load on there, and I showed you how to do this in the last one. Let's see if we can get this bypass in place. We'll give you a look inside of this motor. And again, Carol's main complaint is lack of power. So let's see what we have going on with the power factor. And I explained this in the last live stream. As you're looking at, see if you can see that. Yeah, I think you can. As you're looking at, I'll bring this other one over closer too. As you're looking at the side of this right here where you plug in the power supply, hopefully you can see that. I think you can see that. Let's try that. Anyways, you're looking at the side of here where you plug the power supply in. You've got 3 connection points. And I always explain that I break these out in zones so you understand how the wiring goes with these machines. You've got zone 1, 2, and 3 from right to left, 1, 2, 3. And when you're wiring the 201, you're going to be wiring zone 1 and 3 for the light. The foot controller is going to be zone 1 and 2. And then the motor is going to be zones 2 and 3. So when we go to do a bypass on this motor, just so we can kind of see where it's at right now, we're going to be connecting our bypass to zones 2 and 3. Change that angle a little bit more. There we go. I moved over by the laptop so I could actually see what we're doing. So let's say you find a 201-2 and you don't have access to a power cord or a foot controller. You're still able to test this machine, and I covered that in the last live stream. Let's say we want to start with the basics and check the light. We can connect these leads to zones 1 and 3, and we can test the lighting system on this, assuming it has a light bulb, which this one does. We can test that to see if we've got a good wiring on that machine. Let's see if I can plug this in. Okay, so I've got it plugged in now. Whoops. I did have it plugged in now. It popped right off, didn't it? That was pretty exciting. So we can flip this switch right here, and we can see if our light comes on. Hopefully it does. And you can see, I think on the bed, you can see that our light did come on properly. It's important to know this because you might come across a sewing machine sometimes and you'll want to know if it works before you pay the money. Because oftentimes when you buy a machine, there's a no return policy. So it's important to know that you've got a working machine before you put your money on the table. And that's the way you can check the light. Now, if you want to check the motor, we're going to move this one. Just going to get that into a better position. Clip this one on zone 3. Clip this one on zone 2. And I did unplug this. You'll want to do this unplugged. Don't do it with it plugged into the outlet. Just in case you touch both of these at the same time, you're going to get a jolt. So you got to be extra careful, right? Treat electricity with respect. Treat electricity with respect. So I'm going to create a little bit of a barrier between these two, just so that they are not as likely to pop off and touch each other. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can plug this in, and we're going to see if we get a response from the motor and how much of a response we get. Let me see if I have one other. Looking around to see if I have another extension cord. I don't see one. That's okay. I'll plug it in over here and just be extra careful. Now notice what we're getting off of this motor. Notice right about over here. Hopefully you can see it in the camera. We're getting smoke that's coming off of this motor. We're actually getting smoke. Let me see if I can get the right angle. Hopefully you can see it in the camera shot. Watch right about here on the motor. I can see the smoke clearly. I don't know if you can see it. We're getting smoke. A lot of smoke off of there. I'm going to go over by. I'm going to unplug this real quick and then go over by the laptop and just greet everybody. But I'm hoping you were able to see that smoke coming off of this motor, and that's again part of the concern of the customer is there's not enough power. So it'll be interesting when we open this up to see what we find as far as condition of wiring and other stuff that's holding this motor back right now. It's probably going to be pretty enlightening pretty quick. All right, I'm going to pop over here. Okay, Susie said you can see the smoke. So, yeah, not good. All right, let me scroll up real quick and say hello to folks. And I should say as well that this live stream was not scheduled. Only Susie and myself knew that I was going to try to do this. And part of the reason that we're doing the live stream today on a Thursday, which is kind of an odd day to do it, is adjacent to the temporary workshop that is in Susie's home. Her neighbor is going to be doing a roofing job starting on Saturday morning. So, we'll see how loud it is because I do have another machine that I can present on Saturday. But our thought was to be able to wrap up this part 2 today where there's not going to be any nail guns going off or any other loud noises right next door as Susie's neighbor gets the roof replaced. And it might be a lot more difficult, especially with the workshop wall being right up against the same direction as that house. At any rate, that's why we're doing a live stream today, if that makes any sense, hopefully. All right, let me say some quick hellos. Well, obviously, hello to Susie, who is just upstairs above this temporary workshop right now on her laptop, helping moderate the live stream with the rest of the leaders that are present. And hello also to Teresa out there in Thorpe, Wisconsin. I've passed by that area a couple of times now, and we're going to see if we can't maybe connect with Tim and Teresa on one of the next trips back to Oconto and have a chance to maybe have a quick breakfast with them or something like that en route. That'll be a lot of fun. Hello to Kathy King. Great to have Kathy here as always. Who else do we have? We've got Tim as well. Tim is Teresa's husband, and they also have a real beautiful horse. I don't know if any of you saw. Oh, wait a second. I don't think I posted those pictures. Pretty sure I did not post those pictures. See if I can find a quick picture of Teresa's horse. Where is it? Give me just a second. I'm scrolling through. I think she sent them to me by text. I believe so. Maybe she emailed. Teresa might have emailed them to me. Maybe that's why I'm not seeing them. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she emailed them. At any rate, eventually I'll get those posted on Facebook. The pictures of Teresa and Tim's horse, just a gorgeous, gorgeous horse. And I believe she's a girl. She's a little girl. So they have just a beautiful female horse. Okay, I know nothing about horses. You can tell that straight away. All right. Also, good morning to Joelle out in California. And if Joelle's mom is either watching or watches this later, I'll say a quick hello to Joelle's mom as well. Let's see who else we have. We have Al Koss out of California. And I got a cute little comment by Alex's wife about how beautiful Southern California is and how perfect the weather is. And why am I looking, she didn't say it, but she was basically saying, why are you looking at Kentucky and Tennessee? You could come to Southern California. So, yeah. And it's funny, as you talk about relocating the workshop, I've gotten invitations from around the world, people that want me to come to New Zealand and Ireland and the UK and Australia and Tasmania, Australia. So, yeah, everybody's got a piece of heaven, don't they? You fall in love with the place that you call home, and you think it's the most magnificent, prettiest spot on the earth. And, others have the same perception about their neck of the woods, usually, unless they live like in downtown LA with all the traffic and all the smog. And then they might have a different outlook on it. But I think Alex and his wife live in a real pretty spot in Southern California. So tempting. But the cost of living is crazy there, isn't it? Southern California's got to be really, really expensive to live there. All right, who else do we have? I don't recognize this name. Is it Ren? R-E-N. Ren. We've got Ren that joined us as well. And, Ren. Ren is from Oconto, it looks like. And Ren is Renee. Renee must have changed her screen name. So that must be Renee that popped up in the live chat. So hello to Renee back in the great city of Oconto, Wisconsin. Let's see who else we have. Rose 777. Great to have Rose here as well. Let's see who else we have. And we have Susie Tippett as well. So we've got two Susies in the live stream. Welcome to Susie Tippett. Great to have you here again. And good morning to Terry as well. Great to have Terry here. And I think that's everybody. We've got a small group, and I was actually surprised to see as many people pop up as have popped up already, because again, this was unannounced. Seldom, if ever, do I do a live stream on Thursday. And so to have a number of people jump on, I really am grateful and honored to have you here. It's great to have you here. Okay, so let me go back to the machine and we'll take apart that Raceway. And hopefully the sound quality is okay. Move this over just a little bit further, the microphone. Okay. So we did an initial test on this motor that belongs to Carol Johnson. She's wondering why it has no power. Well, when you get smoke from a potted motor, it's never a good sign. But we're going to be concentrating on a number of things before we deal with any wiring issues or motor issues. I wanted to show you how to open up these little filler valves, and I can take these off now because I've disconnected the power. Let's see here. Let me get this back over there. Let's see here. So if you've never done this before, if you've never serviced your 201, I'm just going to look at the camera shot again. Yeah, that's a good shot. You can see that well enough. You got to clean this area up here first because it's all going to run downhill, right? And it's going to go into these wells anyway. So we're going to do our best to clean this area up in here right now. And you can use a variety of things to clean this. You can certainly use rubbing alcohol on a cosmetic pad. You can use a Windex type solution to spray in here to break down some of this old varnishing and grease that's holding this worm gear back right now. You can also use some CRC cleaner. It works real well to dissolve old varnishing in that. You just have to be real careful about the overspray so that it doesn't get onto the finish of the machine. CRC is very, very dangerous to use on any area near a painted surface. So probably for sake of time, we'll hit it with a little bit of CRC first. And then we're going to go ahead and go in there and try to get all of that gunk out of there as best as we can. We're going to get more gunk that comes out of these wells when we start pushing that new grease up through here to try to get all that gunk out of these wells so that the system is nice and clean. And it's not necessarily going to eliminate the smoking issue that we're having right now. That's probably a wiring factor, but we'll be able to decrease the load on that motor significantly. So without all the blah, blah, blahing, let's concentrate on this first of all. And again, if you didn't see it in the beginning part of the live stream, I'll get real close. You can look in the back of there and see all of that dark spot in there. Hopefully you're able to see that. Let me move that light away. It might actually be better. Yeah, you can see a little bit of it in there. Okay, so let's get to work on this. And this is what I wanted to cover in the last live stream, and I never got to it. So we're going to carefully hit it with just a little bit of CRC. I'm going to get a cloth and drape it across here so that I don't get any overspray on the motor casing. Kind of just tuck it in there. Let's see if I can move this other light a little bit closer too. See if we can get that just a little bit closer. I don't know if that's helping or not. Hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm still figuring out this lighting system and what color light is going to work best. Let's do that. Okay, so a little bit of CRC in here, and give this a couple shakes before you try it. We'll just spray a little bit on the backside. Also, the other thing I'm going to do for safety purposes is I'm also going to put on some glasses like this. And just in case there's a little bit of spray back, you don't want to get that in your eyes. So you can see me right now. I've got these glasses on just to protect my eyes. Then we're going to take a cosmetic pad. Kind of just tuck it in like this, and we're going to take a pair of tweezers, and we're just going to move this around inside of there to try to get some of that stuff off that's inside of there, because we don't want to put clean grease in here and have it recontaminated right away. And again, you don't have to use CRC. You could use rubbing alcohol. You can use Windex. We'll probably use a combination of all three to get this nice and clean before we address the well issues below. Kind of absorb that extra there. And just give you an initial glimpse. We haven't done much already, but look at what we've already gotten out. And this is, again, something that I can say confidently, a sew and vac is not going to address this. If that motor turns, they're going to consider it good to go. But you can see the chunks of dirt, varnishing, and scum, old grease, that are holding this motor back right now. And that certainly is contributing to the load on the motor and causing it to run much more heavy and a lot warmer than it should be. So we'll just go in there and go after this a little bit more. We'll use some of our other tools. Brushes like this are real good to get in there and break some of this down. We'll use a smaller end and kind of just work some of that loose. We get that surface nice and clean. And that worm gear, when it's not touching that interlacing gear on the balance wheel, this will turn freely. And so as you're cleaning in there, just press on it with a little bit of pressure, and you'll be able to clean all the edges of that worm gear to get all that gunk loosened up. I don't know if you can see it turning in there or not. Just with the pressure of the brush. You can see what I've done to these. Again, came from Susie. I've all but destroyed between the last live stream and this live stream. I've all but destroyed this brush already. But Susie's got at least 2 or 3 of everything, so I think I've got a fighting chance. Let's see here. I sometimes go back and forth between the cosmetic pads and then also good old-fashioned cotton balls. Cotton balls tend to be more malleable. They get into all the little grooves and all the little spaces. And now that we've broken that down a little bit more, now we'll shift from the CRC, and we'll use just a little bit of Windex in there just to break it down. And we're going to be absorbing all this back up again. We're not going to leave it in there, so it's not going to contaminate the new grease. Just kind of go in there with this, and we'll kind of swab this off as well. And if we get a little bit of the cotton in there from the cotton ball, it's okay, because we'll get rid of that before we add the grease. See, again, little effort at all. So you don't want to just add grease to it. You want to get all of this junk out as best as you can. Go in there with another cosmetic pad, and this time we'll use rubbing alcohol. So we're shifting between 3 different chemicals to break this stuff down. We're using CRC initially, then we're using a Windex-based product, and then we're using a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And I'm actually going to soak this pad down using some of this, and I showed this in the other live stream, using some of this 91 proof rubbing alcohol. I don't know if they make anything higher than this, maybe not for public sale, but 91% is about as high as I've seen it. They sell it in 70%, 80%, and a variety of others. So now we've got this pad pretty dampened with rubbing alcohol. And now we're going to go over that surface again, try to get more of that stuff off. And again, if you take your machine into a sew and vac or a mom and pop store, don't expect them to do this. They're going to spend about 45 minutes on your machine if you're lucky, and they'll only do the very, very basics. You see again. Let's see, I'm looking for my dental tool. I know I'll find it. somewhere around here. Oh, I found it. So now I'm going to use a dental tool, and it's going to be hard for you to see it, but I'm going to go in there after those worm gears and actually get some of the chunky monkey stuff out of there. I'll show it to you on the end of this dental tool, like that right there. I mean, that looks septic to me. I don't know what you can see in the camera, but that's what would be running in this well, creating all that drag on the motor, all of this scum, all of this gook. I'll actually put it on this. Kind of looks like snot almost, doesn't it? And we're going to be getting a lot of that out of the machine. I'm going to set this in the rear a little bit. Now we're at a point where I'm going to go ahead and just swab it a little bit with some Q-tips. I'm going to swab over this with some Q-tips, and we'll get some of those other areas cleaned. And then we're going to be forcing all the other septic material that's trapped down in these wells that's going to be reintroduced again to this gear. We're going to see if we can get as much of that out as possible. Nasty, right? Really, really nasty. Now, there are screw points on the bottom here to try to fit a screwdriver in there. You could probably do it with an offset screwdriver like this. And you'll feel for that groove. The groove is going to be over here. Again, we're going to be turning this counterclockwise to get this open. But I oftentimes will just use a pair of pliers, just very carefully to get as well. But we'll try it this way first because it'll be a little bit less damaging. There we go. And you just work this and unscrew it. We'll take a look at the end and see what we see on the end, and then we'll start forcing that new grease in there to push all the junk up. Set that back over there. We'll get this other one off as well. So now we're going to get some of that green grease. I'm going to back this up a little bit. And what you're going to do is you're going to be forcing that grease up through both of these wells and trying to get that old sediment that's trapped in there, almost like a septic system. I'll just grab a hold of a little bit of it with a Q-tip swab before we force it up. And eventually you'll see the old stuff starting to erupt into this well right here, and we'll clean all that out. Yeah, that's a good shot. That's a good shot. You can see that pretty well. Yep. Okay. And there's a number of ways to do this. I like just using my fingers. Take some of this fresh grease that I just made and begin forcing it up that well. And it'll be hard to see, but it's actually starting to come up already a little bit right there in the left corner. I'll roll over by the laptop, see if you can see that. Yeah, you'll be able to see it eventually. We'll put more in there. Get all that gook out of there. And now we'll move over to this other well and start forcing the grease up in there as well. And if you get a little bit on the patina, it's okay. Grease is not going to hurt the finish of your 201-2. We'll just wipe it off when we're done. There is an option to remove this entire assembly. There's 2 bolts on the inside, and the whole assembly can be taken off. I've serviced motors that way as well. But for sake of this live stream, we'll leave it mounted to the machine. And if you ever have to replace a motor, let's say the motor goes totally bad. If you ever have to replace a motor, you're going to be buying the entire assembly because it's all one molded piece. It's all one molded piece. And just make sure that the seller knows what they're selling, because I've had customers that have purchased a new motor assembly that they say is pre-tested. The motor works great, but they find out that the bobbin winding assembly is actually for $15.91. And so the 201 class 66 bobbins don't mount to the bobbin winding assembly properly, and you can't wind them. So really be careful if you buy one of these. Make sure that, number one, that it's working, that it's been tested and serviced, and then also that it has the proper bobbin winding assembly that's going to work with your 201-2 or with your 1591 if you're replacing that, because they're going to be using the same type of motor assembly. Yeah, we're starting to get it to pop up a little bit. The back well is going to require a little bit more grease. The back well will be a little bit more grease needy, so make sure you don't stop short on that one. Okay, we're going to stop there for now. I'll show you kind of what we have by giving you a closer shot inside. And then we'll dig some more of the junk out of there before we close it up. So now what I use is one of the dental tools. Just kind of dig around in there a little bit and get some more of that old grease remnant out of there. And you'll be able to see it in contrast real quick to the grease, the good grease. It's going to stand out. So that gives you an idea right there of what was stuck down in those wells. All of this was in there. And as the motor runs, those wells are drawing points for the grease. So this gets recirculated through the motor again, past that worm gear, sticking to all those surfaces. And then eventually it works its way by gravity down into those wells again and gets stuck down there. But that's why we do the process the way we do, is to displace all this stuff and to get it out of that system. So when we reintroduce that clean grease again, we're going to have a lot cooler running motor, and a motor that's going to be able to turn with a great deal less resistance. Let's see. Yeah, so you get the idea. Kind of looks like a septic fest, doesn't it? So we'll throw that away. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pack a little bit more of that fresh grease into this well area. I'm just going to check one more time to make sure we've gotten as much of that gunk out of there as possible. I'm going to pack a little bit more grease in just in case we have any stowaways that are kind of hiding in there. See if we can displace anything else. And you can see the amount of time this takes. And that's why the basic sew and vac places are never, ever, ever going to do this. If they did, they would probably charge you an extra $100 at least. I feel like we should have music on when I'm doing this. Maybe I'll do that. There we go. I think we've done a good job of getting that old stuff out and giving us a good base to add some additional grease now to keep those gears running smoothly. First thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to put those plugs back in. But before we can do that, we've got to clean those plugs as well. We've got to make sure those plugs are nice and clean. All right, let's take a look at those plugs now. And I'll show you kind of inside what we've done so far. Hopefully you can see that. So we've done a good job, I think, of getting the gunk cleaned out of there. And we could spend a lot more time. There's probably a little bit left in there that we didn't get, but I think we've gotten the majority of it. Also have a little bit on this rim right here. I'm going to clean that as well. All right, let's go ahead and clean these caps. And I'm going to clean these. I could clean these with a Q-tip swab, which I'll probably do. I'm also going to probably use a Dremel real quick to get in the grooves, or one of the brushes to get in the grooves of there, because all that junk is still stuck in there. But we're going to clean these up as best as we can, and then we'll reinsert them into the machine again. Yeah, I'm just going over them with the Q-tip swab to kind of pick up that stuff that we just broke off. Remember when we were cleaning the bottom of that other 201 and I was cleaning the gears, the last step we did is we went over them with some kerosene and got all of that remnant stuff off that we'd broken loose. Otherwise, it's just gonna stick on there and go get reintroduced into that grease again. So we want to get that as clean as possible to make sure that we're not reintroducing a contaminant like this stuff to that fresh grease. And we're going to wipe over them with this cloth. Kind of twist them in place like this. Try to get all those grooves cleaned out with this towel as a final step. And I don't know if you can see it in the shot, but that's a much cleaner plug now to go back in that well, so that the grease that we're putting in is not going to get contaminated straight away. Just always think of that. Whatever is coming in contact with your moving components of the machine, everything in between has to be cleaned, because otherwise that dirt's going to migrate over, right? We've talked about that lots of times. So I'll go ahead and insert these plugs again now. And then we'll finish off our service of this well area. And there are some additional things that I do to the worm gears as well. But I'm not going to be showing that in this live stream. And I tighten these by hand, but I've got pretty strong hands, but they don't have to be tightened using a tool. Some people over tighten these, and it really is it's not necessary. So we've gotten those reinserted again. Now we're going to just build up our base in here a little bit with some additional grease. Unlike Susie's Kenmore, you don't have to pack this. Chamber with grease. Just put a little bit of extra in there, a little bit of an extra reservoir, and it'll be more than enough to keep that running smoothly and cool. Yeah, I'm just working it back towards that gear a little bit more. Now we got to concentrate on this balance wheel. This balance wheel is just as essential. And you can see right now it's in real bad shape. So now we're going to concentrate on trying to get this balance wheel with this clutching mechanism cleaned up so that it's going to be able to engage that motor a lot more freely than it is right now. And again, we can use a variety of cleaners on this. We could use CRC if we tucked around the cloth like this to protect the painted surface. But I'm going to use a Windex product instead because it's a little bit safer. This is going to be almost like a Bakelite polymer type material, and CRC might be a little bit too much for it. We'll just let that set for a little bit, and then we'll go over it with this nylon brush. You don't want to use a metal brush, even the copper type one, the brass one, against this, because it can damage those gears since they're not metal. This is all Teflon type material right here. We let that get in there a little bit, and then we'll just start cleaning that up as well. Already we made a good impact, but we still have to do some detailed cleaning in there. Anywhere you can see some more of that gunk, just go in between those Teflon type gears and get that out of there so that it can interlace with that gear coming off the motor more easily. We're getting a lot of stuff out of there that gets trapped in those little gear areas. See all the stuff we pull out of there? Just wipe it off as you go. You notice I wiped this off after we used it, so now I'm just going to wipe over it again, and then we'll spray it one more time with that Windex material to flush out these little crevices. This rag is getting bad off enough. I'm going to go ahead and actually change it out. Get a fresh rag. Look at that brand new rag already. Just from the residue stuff that was still trapped in there that we broke loose. It's starting to come together nicely, isn't it? We're not done yet. Then we're going to use our dental tool And this again is rotating. This is a clutch release. So that when that potted motor kicks in, this is going to allow a little bit of a torque of that balance wheel so that it engages without losing the energy. If this were not here and it were fixed, then you would lose some of that energy as it was trying to engage, but it actually fluxes that energy forward like this. Watch this go, and then it turns that balance wheel. So it allows that energy to be preserved that otherwise would be lost. It really is quite ingenious on Singer's part to come up with something like that for the potted motor. So I'm just cleaning along those edges right now so that we're getting any of the extra gunk out of there so that that can do its job more effectively and we can preserve as much energy from that potted motor as possible. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to irrigate. We're going to irrigate this clutch with kerosene so that it seeps in between there and allows us to pitch and pivot even more evenly and with less resistance. And I've got something set up just for that if I can find it. We could certainly use something like this with this type of applicator to just drip some kerosene along there, but it's going to be more effective if we can inject it into there with a little bit of force. So we're going to be using this syringe with a needle on the end and actually applying it along the edges and forcing it into that space so that we get that lubricant even deeper, and it's going to be able to do a better job in preserving that power. So you're going to rotate it counterclockwise as far as it'll go, and that opens up that chamber along there to receive that lubricant more. Rotate it counterclockwise. Counterclockwise. See the bubbles coming up? See those bubbles coming up? That's a signal that you've done a really good job of getting that lubrication deep into that clutch mechanism. See those bubbles? Yeah, we're going to put a little bit on the top as well. Get it from both sides. Wipe off the excess. And you don't have to get it absolutely dry. The kerosene will work really well with that grease. I usually will add about 3 to 5 drops of kerosene in with the grease anyway, because that, again, kerosene adds a lasting lubrication to that worm gear and its components that come off of the motor, but it also is going to preserve that grease even longer from becoming stiffer where it loses its effectiveness. Inevitably, even my grease that I developed over an extended period of time, probably a year and a half or more, will start to stiffen up a little bit. It loses its moisture factor. The kerosene that we introduce here will preserve that even longer. So I won't say it, but this well will be good for probably about 2 years under constant use. But we'll wipe off the excess and just kind of get that tidied up a little bit. And then we'll be sliding this back into position again. Well, look at the difference that we brought just to this component of the machine. You remember how it looked and the servicing that we've done to it now. to really give it the opportunity to do its job so much more effectively. We also cleaned inside of here as well. Cleaned inside of this area that's going to be going over the main shaft. And then we'll swab this area one last time as well. I usually use like either a Q-tip or a cotton ball to do that with. And that'll have kerosene on it as well. And before we slide this back on, we'll do a little bit of cleaning up around here on top as well, where this bobbin winding tire is. Inevitably, when you're putting grease in and out of here, you might come into contact with this bobbin winding tire. We just want to make sure that that's tidied up and that there's no residue of our grease or oil on there. So we'll do that with rubbing alcohol. We'll kind of swab over that with some rubbing alcohol and make sure that that's all cleaned up. We'll set our clean component back there. We also still have to clean our clutches as well and our stop action once we get done with that. And as a rule, you don't want to use rubbing alcohol on painted surfaces. But for this little bit of swabbing, and then we'll go over it with some machine oil as well to neutralize it, it's not going to hurt that surface. We'll go over our tire first. I'm sure I probably got a little bit of grease on that as I was filling up this well. Go inside of this area right here as well. This is a hidden area for junk getting on the tire. So you always clean that as well, this upper area. You see all the stuff we got off of there. Now we're going to neutralize it, since we just went over it with rubbing alcohol. And we'll put just a little bit of machine oil on there. This is that crystal white that is available at Joann's. You can get this at Walmart, a variety of other places. And it doesn't have any coloring to it, which is great because then it doesn't cause any staining on the machine. So we'll put just a little bit on the end of this swab. And if you didn't know it, you can clean your sewing machine with this crystal white oil. You can just carefully go by that bobbin winding tire so you don't get any oil on there. But any of the area up here where we use that rubbing alcohol to get that grease and oil off, now we're neutralizing that rubbing alcohol with this crystal white sewing machine oil so that it can't do any damage to the clear coat or the patina. Clean up here by the spring release. This is our kickback spring up here on top. You can see just with a little bit of extra effort, we got all that additional oil off of there and also the dirt as well. And again, the big deal about keeping this area clean on your sewing machine is this bobbin winding tire needs a non-skid surface to do its job properly. Once we slide that balance wheel back on, that bobbin winding tire is going to be running on this rim right here. So we also want to make sure that we double check our rim as well as we put this back on to make sure that that clean bobbin winding tire is going to have a proper clean surface to wind that bobbin without slipping. And periodically you'll have to clean this area. You could use a Windex product just on a Q-tip swab, or you could use a little bit of rubbing alcohol just to kind of clean that extra oil off, just a real light coating, and then use a clean swab to get the extra residue of the rubbing alcohol off. But you want to make sure that that space is nice and clean as well, so that we're not getting that tire slipping. We'll just quickly kind of just go around. And you can see there was stuff on there that we couldn't even see. It looked like it was clean. We had wiped it off with the Windex. But when we went over it again with the Q-tip swab and a little bit of rubbing alcohol, we got additional junk off of that rim that could have caused that tire to become contaminated and start slipping. Now we just have a couple of lubrication points on here as well that we'll take care of while we're thinking about it. And as we engage our bobbin winder, you can see that this kickback spring is causing it to, right now we're engaged with that bobbin winding rim and we're winding a bobbin. But we've got pivot points on there that require lubrication right up here and right there. So we'll put just a tiny little drop of oil. And because we just got done cleaning all of that, I'm going to put a little Q-tip underneath there to catch the extra so that we don't get extra oil on that rim or otherwise. A little bit right there as well. So we lubricated this spot right here where this engages. Just dab off the extra so that it doesn't get on our clean bobbin winding tire. And then also, most of you know it, there's a small little lubrication point right on the front of the bobbin winding tire right there as well. There's a tiny little hole right there. And so we put just a little bit of oil in there as well. And again, keep a Q-tip in proximity just so that you don't run it all over your bobbin winding tire again. I'm not used to this bottle, so I'm being real paranoid. I don't want to get too much in there. There we go. And just kind of dab that off as well. Allows that to turn so much easier, doesn't it? Does an excellent job. And just to pat our deck, we'll just, with that clean swab, we'll just wipe over that tire one last time. So I think we're finally ready now to slide our balance wheel back into place, and then we'll focus on that clutch and stop action. So we've got this beautiful, fully functioning clutch mechanism now, moving exactly as it should be, interlacing with those clean gears and that clean well. And now we're going to marry it all back together again. You just kind of slide it into position, and you'll feel it kind of go into place as it fits in there. There we go. Might get a little extra grease on there. You can just kind of swab it off. It's not going to hurt anything. But this area right here, we want to keep this nice and clean because that's where our stop action is going to be. And we want that to be really, really clean in there. We'll put a little bit of lubricant on the inside for the threading of the stop action, but the rest of this we'll clean it up using rubbing alcohol to make sure we don't have any grease or oil on there. Also, we need to clean this as well, don't we? And you can use a combination of Windex. You can use rubbing alcohol on this if you'd like. And then one of your brushes to get all that extra stuff broken free of there. In the past, I used to use a dental tool to go around here. You can see right there where I'm getting, you might be able to see with that light, I'm getting some of that off straight away. But constant and never-ending improvement, I found that the brushes are actually more effective and you're getting more contact surface with that. You're getting it cleaner in the end. So that's what I use now. Well, I hope all of you are finding this helpful, especially if you own a 201. It's going to give you some insight into the machine on areas that if you've had your machine serviced somewhere else and you get into these spaces, all of a sudden you'll realize what I say is true, and that is that these areas have never been touched. The bottom pedestal feet on the bottom, this area, the motor itself, you'll be shocked what you find once you start to get into that. This is our stop action. We'll try to get this into place first, but we'll clean that surface we're going to put it on before we do that. And it's easy enough to orientate this. You see these little fins right there on either side. What happens when you crank this stop action down to tighten the clutch is it compresses these little fins. So on any sewing machine, when you install that clutch on your machine, it could be a Kenmore, it could be a Singer, it could be practically any machine that you could name. You always want to make sure that these little fins are pointing towards you. You're going to see that they're slightly up, and that's the way they're supposed to be, because then when you turn that stop action and you crank it in, it compresses these down and it makes contact in these groove points right here on the main shaft so that that main shaft is driven. Hopefully you can see that, the little openings there that those little flanges go into. All right, so let's clean this area up and then we'll get that clutch back into place. Let's see here, a little bit of rubbing alcohol. And we've cleaned this surface before, but it gets one of those situations where you continue to pull more and more dirt out, don't you? The more thorough you are, the more dirt you'll get. So again, you don't want to lubricate this surface. You don't want to put any Crystal White sewing machine oil. You don't want to put any kerosene on here, unless you're using that just to clean it. But then you want to get all that oil off of this area right here where this clutch is going to be in place. So it gives you a little bit of an idea. As many times as we've cleaned it, look at that swab right there. And that would all cause a drag for this clutch. And if you ever had it where you'll disengage the clutch, but your main shaft will keep engaging and the needle will start moving, it's usually going to be an issue with your clutch or this surface right here that has dirt and debris on it, and it's catching this from being able to move freely when it's not compressed. In other words, there's a little bit of dirt buildup on the back, and it's snagging on here, and then it's engaging your main drive. So the cleaner you get this, And the cleaner you get this, particularly the back, the better that stop action is going to work. So we're going to get this into place. And obviously these little dimples are your stop point for the stop action pin that screws in. And it's always a little bit of a rolling of the dice. It's always a little bit of a rolling of the dice when you put this stop action on and you screw that clutch on as to whether or not you're going to have to flip this 180 degrees. Just because of the way that clutch will tighten up. And sometimes it'll tighten up right up against one of these little dimples. And then when you flip it the opposite way, it's going to tighten up properly. So if you've ever had a clutch that kind of slips a little bit, it's probably an issue of you put your clutch on upside down. And if you just flip it 180 degrees, all of a sudden you'll be able to tighten that stop action up properly, and your main shaft won't slip anymore. You won't have it coming in and out of gear. So we'll try it like this. And we may have to flip it. But first of all, we have to clean this up a little bit too, don't we? We'll go ahead and get it with a little bit of Windex. And we'll use our brush on it as well. And this is a metal surface, so we can use either our brass brush, or we can use our metal brush. I'll probably use the brass one just because we haven't used that very much. It's a little bit softer. Get into those grooves. And Windex, the Windex material, that the liquid that we're spraying on here, does not hurt your chrome pieces either. If you're concerned about that, getting Windex on here, it's a nice way to tidy these up. It does not damage the chromium. So you can use most Windex products with no issue at all to clean up your chrome portions of the machine too. It's just a general cleaner. It does quite a good job, doesn't it? And always remember to wipe your brush off when you get done. It's so easy to kind of throw it back on the table, and then you go to use it somewhere else and you're adding contamination or dirt that wouldn't have been on that surface to begin with. So just kind of wipe it off real quick. What I do is I kind of run it between the cloth and I pinch it, give it a pinch and kind of squeeze all that stuff out of there. Give yourself a nice clean working surface again. And then let's wipe off this stop action, get all that stuff off that we just broke loose. There we go. Now it's ready to do its job a little bit better. The only thing we're going to add is we're going to add just a little bit of kerosene to the threads on here. So when we screw it in, that thing's coming loose. When we screw it in, it's going to turn in much easier. So we'll just put a little drop of kerosene on the end of this stop action that's threaded. Just a little, just to dampen it. And now we'll see if we guessed right as far as the orientation of this clutch. We may end up having to flip it. We'll see. And sometimes when you're putting the stop action on, whoops, the clutch will kind of pop out. Sometimes what I'll do in my regular workshop is I'll elevate these feet a little bit so that it's pitched back a little bit, and then it's going to create a little tilt so that doesn't happen. I might do that right now just so I don't have to battle it quite as much. Let's move some of these tools out of the way. So we'll just carefully lift this up a little bit. Let me see if I got my tape somewhere. What can I use? Boom, boom. I'll use this black tape right here just to elevate it a little bit. Yeah, that's not going to help me. I need something wider. Hold on a second. Something a little bit wider. Let's see here. It should be just about right. I'm using Susie's DeWalt case right here to elevate this a little bit, so it hopefully will hold that clutch in place as we're putting that stop action on. Just a little bit of a tilt can make the difference and make it easier. Make sure you have this screw backed out enough, not that it's going to fall out, but have this little screw for the stop action out far enough that it's not going to hit one of those dimples as you're screwing it in until you screw it all the way back in. And the way you'll be able to tell if you got it right, once we screw this screw in, right now we've got it fully turned in clockwise to engage it. We should be able to get a nice rotation of about 5 to 7 millimeters so that stop action is disengaged to allow for bobbin winding. If we can't turn it about 5 millimeters, then we know that we've got that clutch positioned the wrong direction, which happens quite often. It's just a 50-50 shot, isn't it? We'll screw this in, and we'll see how far we can rotate this. See how it's only going a short distance? That means we've got to reverse that clutch underneath there. So just back that set screw out again for the stop action. Carefully remove this. Take that clutch and just rotate it 180 degrees. Now we're going to take our stop action again. I usually kind of put my thumb in the middle to get it threaded and turning properly. So now we got it fully tightened as if we're going to operate the machine. Now we need to tighten that screw again. And now we should see a dramatic difference. We're going to get ready to wind a bob, and we've got to be able to rotate this stop action far enough that is going to free up those little flanges being pushed into the main shaft. Otherwise, we're going to be moving the needle while we're trying to wind a bobbin. So now we flip that clutch upside down. We're going to grab this. Look at that. That's the way it should be. See that? How far? We were only getting about this far. It was barely moving with that clutch the other way. We flipped it, and now we're able to fully disengage that clutch so that when we go to wind a bobbin, only the balance wheel is going to move. We got that disengaged right now, only the balance wheel. You can see the needle over there. And that's partly because we did a thorough job of cleaning those two surfaces again. Remember? We cleaned the surface that clutch rests against, and we cleaned our clutch thoroughly. We did not lubricate it. A lot of people make that mistake of lubricating the clutch, and then that oil starts to become sticky, and it causes that clutch to stick. And then you've got the needle moving even when you've got the clutch fully disengaged. And then when we're ready to sew again, we just rotate this back in. And you've had clutches in the past on some of your sewing machines where you go to try to tighten it and it doesn't tighten. You try to tighten it, it keeps turning. That's generally also an issue with the orientation of the clutch as well. So now we've got a beautifully set up machine where when we wanted to To sew, it's going to sew. When we want it to wind a bobbin, it's going to wind a bobbin properly. We've also freed up that worm gear coming off of the motor from all of that crud that you saw, so that it was creating all that drag. Now we've got a nice moving worm gear coming off of that motor with that fresh grease. We've cleaned all that well out. We've lubricated things properly. We've also serviced the balance wheel as well with that special clutch release that's on there that allows that motor to engage with power without losing the power as it transfers it from the motor to the clutch down the main shaft, so we don't lose any of that power with that little fluxing ring that's on the balance wheel. We serviced that. We lubricated that. Everything is absolutely spot on. The only thing we have to figure out is what our source of smoke is now. And we can try to do a bypass again real quick right now to see, since we've serviced all of this and we've got it running really well, whether or not we're going to still get as much smoke. I'm guessing we will, but it might be kind of fun to check it out. And while we're checking it out, I'll just real quick slide over and I'm going to put on just a little bit of music because I'm getting stir crazy with as quiet as it is. Give me just a few moments. It looks like I've got a text message as well. And it looks like a message from Susie about Terry G wants to know about using kerosene. I guess you'll have to clarify, using kerosene on what? What would we be using kerosene on? So if Terry G is still in the live stream, just answer that question of what we would be using the kerosene on. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you can use kerosene on painted surfaces as well. Painted surfaces would be much better served by kerosene than by a Windex product. Windex is much better for chromium surfaces. Kerosene or crystal white sewing machine oil is much better for painted surfaces. Right now, I don't know if you can see it in the shot, but we have kind of a glazy look. We've got kind of a glazy, milky look to the side of this balance wheel right now. We tidied up the chromium part when we cleaned it using Windex. It looks really quite good. I would do more detail on it after the live stream, but for our purposes right now, we've done a good job of cleaning it up. But for cleaning this surface, cleaning this up a little bit, get a regular cotton ball and get a little bit of kerosene. Just a little bit of kerosene here. Kind of dampen it down a bit. And I don't know what you can see. I'm going to shut off Susie's light real quick. But if you can see that kind of milkiness, it doesn't look really, really great right now. Change the style of light. Maybe that helps better. Maybe this will help better too. See how it's got kind of a milkiness to it? It just doesn't look really good. You know what I mean? It almost kind of looks chalky. So now we'll take a little bit of this kerosene on this cotton ball. We'll just kind of go in a circular motion. You always go in one direction. Always go in one direction when you're cleaning. Don't do this. I see people doing this, and what you're doing is you're basically spreading the dirt around. We want to get the dirt off and get the oil off. See, I'm pushing it in one direction. You see the stuff we got off. I think you can see that in the shot a little bit. That's what was causing that milky appearance. And now if you look at the same surface, And I'll actually, so that it's not just the reflection of the kerosene residue, we'll actually wipe over it with, this is a clean swab. Wipe over the clean swab as well. And then we're just looking at the painted surface. And when you do this, do it real lightly when you're wiping off the residues, just so you can see the impact that you brought. But if you look at that now, bring in the same light. I can't see the laptop from there, but I think you can see it's a beautiful shine now. Really quite lovely. And it might take a couple more services of going around it with the kerosene. But yeah, kerosene is wonderful for painted surfaces. Even this back potted motor area right now, you may not be able to see in the lighting, but it's real chalky as well. And you can just go with it, a simple little swab with just a little bit of kerosene on it. I'm looking for the bottle now. There it is. Just a little bit of kerosene. I don't know if you can see the impact or not, but it's really quite lovely now. And this is the residue that we got off of there. You can see that on the cotton swab. So kerosene is a wonderful agent to use on painted surfaces. Windex is a great agent to use on chromium pieces. Okay, let's see here. For cleaning, you were cleaning inside the balance wheel when Terry G asked about using kerosene. Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, kerosene. And Tim wants to know which cuts grease better, kerosene or rubbing alcohol. I would say it's one of the other. It really depends on what surface you're working with. Kerosene is going to be a safe surface for painted and for chromium surfaces, although Windex is going to work much better on chrome. But there have been occasions where I've used, as you saw me cleaning in this well area today, you saw me use different stages of chemicals. I started with a little bit of CRC, and then I went from CRC to rubbing alcohol, and then I eventually introduced kerosene as well. So the only thing to consider, Tim, is remember from the last live stream when I demonstrated the flash points of different chemicals. Inside of this well area, there's not a big risk. It's a sealed chamber. There's not a big risk of CRC or of rubbing alcohol working its way into the motor back here. But if you're cleaning the motor, like on the stators, the commutator, and the stack lamentations, you'll want to be a little bit more cautious about the type of cleaning agent you use because, again, it's a closed compartment that has an ignition source. And, as long as you allow it to dry out, I would say try both. Try, as long as it's a non-painted surface, try a little bit of kerosene with a little bit of rubbing alcohol mixed in with it. I've certainly have used that on tougher surfaces, particularly on the bottom of machines. They work beautifully together. There's no chemical reaction. Rubbing alcohol and kerosene mix very well together, and they increase the cleaning capacity of the agents that you otherwise would use separately. So I would use both, depending on the surface and where you're using it. Yeah, great question. That's a real good question. Okay, let me get a little bit of music on. And just a real quick feedback. How is the, again, I'm trying to figure out these lights a little bit that I'm using down in this temporary workshop. There's different shades of light you can choose. You kind of see me changing it there. I'm just trying to figure out what works best with the camera. But yeah, give me feedback on how the video is. Hopefully you're able to see what I'm showing you, and hopefully you're able to hear it as well. So I'm just going to open it up on my screen real quick and do an audio check.
Attention viewers, we are sorry to interrupt your show, but we just received a call from our representatives, and they told us that the 5,200
Okay, let's see. Testing 1 2 3. Testing.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing.
Yeah, audio sounds really good, doesn't it?
Yeah, audio sounds really good, doesn't it?
This guy keeps repeating everything that I say. Hey, stop that.
Hey, stop that.
Oh man. How does it sound down here as far as echo? Are you getting any echo on audio, or is it better? Someone had told me that we're getting a little bit of an echo on the first live stream down here. So hopefully that echo is less of a factor today. All right, let me see what we have. Bum, 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 bum. Trying to find some music to put on. It's just so quiet in here for me. So quiet. See if I can pick out some music for us to play. Just have to make sure that it's royalty free. We're still connected. We're still connected. Still looking. Well, I hope what we've covered so far, and we still have to get down to the Raceway as well, or maybe that'll be part 3. But I would like to try to cover the Raceway today if we can. Oh, I got to remember to show you the wiring too on that other machine, the wiring that I did. Yeah, I'll put on some Royal Classic. I think that's good. Okay, I've got a little bit of music playing. With me talking right now, is the music overpowering my voice, or can you hear the music and you can hear me at the same time. Let me try it again. Got the music playing. Can you hear me right now if I talk, or is the music drowning out my voice? It may be the height of the microphone. Anyway, at least I can hear the music. As long as you can hear me. Okay, assuming you can hear me, I wanted to show this real quick before I throw it away. On the last live stream, I was talking about the wiring difference. When you look at these two wires side by side, the one on the left, this black one, is going to be 16 gauge wire. The one on the right is going to be 20 gauge wire. And this is what was wired to the foot controller, to the 201. So I took this wiring out and replaced it with this wiring. You can see that, hopefully you can see the difference. But again, with the foot controller, being the gateway to the sewing machine as far as providing energy, using smaller gauge wire like this is going to right away put the motor at a disadvantage. So I'm going to throw this away now. This is what was on Ronnie's machine originally. Oh, good. Okay, perfect. So I talked about doing a quick little bypass, maybe just for fun. Let's see if we have any better results. Any better results from this 201 now that we've done a thorough servicing of this. We haven't done anything to the motor yet, but we'll see if we get a better result as far as the amount of smoke. Oh, that's a smart idea. You know what else I'm going to do is I'm going to take off the cover on the potted motor, see if we can even see more clearly where that smoke is coming from. Let's do that real quick. Oh, you could smell the inside of that. You can smell the hot smell from the whatever's burning. Let's check this out. Let's see what we get this time. Yeah, let's see what we get. Yeah, we're still getting a lot of smoke. You know what though? It's starting to clean up a little bit. If you notice, the smoke came out pretty heavy initially, but then we ran the motor a little bit more, and the motor smoke has almost all but subsided. Let's run it a little bit longer. It just shows the huge impact that proper servicing to something like this that's creating so much drag on this motor can cause. Still have to service this, still have to inspect it, still have to check for damaged wiring, but already the impact that we brought through here is evidenced by the smoke becoming less evident. I hope that makes sense. Maybe. And we're even driving it with a load right now. Let's disengage the clutch, which will allow this motor to run at higher RPMs. And let's see if we get smoke then, or whether or not we stay smoke free. Right now, we're pretty much smoke free. Let me check the angle of the camera. Okay, let's watch for that smoke. I'm going to be driving it now without the main shaft, which means we'll be running at a higher RPM. Let's see if that produces the smoke then. We got a little bit of a spark that came out too. Did you see that? I don't know if you can see that in the camera. And now we're getting more smoke running at a higher RPM. So it's the speed of the motor that's influencing it right now. Very, very interesting. So it'll be interesting when we take this motor apart to see what we see behind these stators. Right now, we've got all this tucked in. We can't see what's happening behind there. We could even have some oil that's worked its way onto the motor brushes as well. Motor brushes that get oil on them will also produce that smoke as well. So it might not even be a wiring issue. It might simply be that there's oil that's gotten on the brushes, which then gets on the commutator, and it's causing that extra smoke. Yeah, I don't feel any binding. With the work that we did in here, there might have been binding before, but it's turning very, very nicely right now. Turning very, very nicely now. Well, we will find out, won't we? But we have to shift over now and focus on the Raceway. I promised we would cover that in this live stream. I promised we would try to cover that in this live stream. All right, so let's round. Put our cover back on for now. Spin this all the way around. Okay, let's concentrate on the Raceway now. We've seen what it looks like when it's torn apart on this one, and we've seen all the filth in there that we're going to have to clean. Get all that tidied up in there. We've seen all the different components over here. Now we're going to actually take it apart so you know how to take it apart. Make sure that that's covered as well, hopefully. Okay, get those out of there. I'm going to look over on the camera and just see how clear we are. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Well, the first thing that I always do is take out the needle, because this needle is going to need to be replaced anyway. Yeah, it's not horrible, but we'll take this out anyway and start with a fresh needle once this machine is going to be live streamed. Okay. Take off our faceplate so we can see inside of there. Really quite a lovely faceplate on this machine. I love the scrolling. Okay, set that over here. Not a very clean machine, though. You can kind of see all the varnishing buildup on there. I think you can. See all the varnishing buildup on here as well. It's really quite a dirty machine, isn't it? Carol's machine is very dirty, plus it smokes too. All right, reorganize myself over here just a little bit. All right, we'll take the presser foot off. We're going to take the feed dog plate off next. And this machine that we're working on right now that belongs to Carol, I haven't done any servicing on it other than what we did together today. So it has about another 125 steps that I have to take it through. About another 125 steps. Get the needle plate off, get our bobbin out. And again, just for review purposes, what type of bobbin does this machine take? What type of bobbin does this take? They come in plastic, they come in metal, they even come in aluminum now. It's a very popular bobbin within the family of Singer sewing machines. Very, very popular. And you can see this horizontally mounted bobbins Raceway system, how it operates. You barely see the laptop. I hope you can see that. Yeah, you can see it. Yeah, that's a good shot. I'm going to rotate the laptop a little bit. So yeah, this is a horizontal hook system, isn't it? A horizontal hook system. And again, what most people will do in servicing a model like this, what most folks will do in servicing it is they might go at it with some kerosene and a Q-tip swab. They'll clean this area out in here. They'll swab this out. They might clean off their feed dogs a little bit over here as well. Interestingly, these feed dogs are totally loose. And again, I haven't done anything to this machine yet. Look at those feed dogs. That's kind of alarming, isn't it? We're going to be taking them off anyway, but they're already loose. I wonder if that was part of Carol's issues. Part of Carol's issues when she was talking about material feed along with power as well. Power is a major factor. And already we're starting to see some plus results from that motor, and we haven't even dug into the motor yet, right? That's really encouraging. Get some great results even before we do any significant digging into it. But these feed dogs were just totally loosey-goosey. Totally loosey-goosey. Feed dogs are actually fairly clean. They don't look bad, but if someone took them off to clean them, they never tighten them back up again. We'll set those over there. Now we're going to take off this retainer plate right here. There's 2 screws on either side. And this retainer is going to, very much like the featherweight design, it's going to allow the horizontal hook system to move below while the bobbin case is stationary in the middle. If I kind of turn it manually, you can kind of see the action of the machine, how our hook is coming around and our bobbin case is stationary in the middle. And there's going to be 2 calibration points on this plate that we're about to remove. There's a left calibration, which is standard, and then there's a right calibration if you're working with certain types of thread. It's going to allow the hook action to be a little bit swayed as far as the orientation of how the bobbin case is positioned over the hook. Generally, you're always going to be using the left one, but there are a limited number of instances where you can calibrate it into the right position. I'll show you what that looks like. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit too wide for that screw. Let's see if I can get that in there. So our plate is now loose. And if we're working with certain types of heavier threads, you can see right now we're in notch number 1. Let me try to get real close. Right now we're in notch number 1. We can also adjust this bobbin case so that it's in notch number 2, but only in very limited situations with certain types of threads. I've never had an instance where I've had to do it. So when you put it back together, we're going to make sure that it's not in the left notch, like so that it holds that hook properly, the bobbin case properly. Take this piece out as well. And now we've got to get this slide plate off. The easiest way to get this slide plate off is to slide it this direction. A lot of people try to wiggle it off this way and tweak it and everything. It's just a lot easier just to work it this direction. Just lift it up slightly, and then you can pivot it loose without breaking these little connectors on the back. Now we're going to adjust our hooks so that we've got our two. It's going to be kind of hard to see them, but there's a little clip. There's a little clip right here, and there's a little clip right here. See if I can get real close so you can see those clips. There's a small little clip right here, and there's a little clip right over here. And what we need to do is we have to very gently bring those clips out so we can free up our hook system so we can pull it out for a thorough cleaning. And again, you're not going to see this being done at a sew and vac. So we'll get our first little clip. The lighting is not so great. Let's see here. There we go. Does that help? I think that helps a little bit. I changed the type of coloring on it. So just gently, you can see I gently rock that little clip out. That little clip was holding this in place, and I just rocked that out. We have to do the same thing with the other side. Rock it out, and then we should be able to pull this up past it. That one just popped back into place. It's a little tricky, Use a different tool. This one is a little bit more difficult to work with. There we go. So you can see these clips do a very good job. These clips do a very, very good job of holding this hook and this bobbin case assembly in position. They basically clip on either side and they hold it in the position. But now that we've taken it out, now we're able to do a more thorough inspection of it and make sure that we deal with cleaning issues like this. We check for barbs on the end of the hooks. We can just do a lot more thorough inspection by removing it entirely from the assembly. And then once we put it back together, those clips will be the retaining force again. This one is not nearly as bad as the 201 on the other side of the workbench. If we look inside of here where we saw a significant amount of crud and buildup inside of here, this actually looks like Carol may have gotten industrious and did some cleaning in here herself, or maybe she found that rare service center that would have done some additional cleaning in there. Obviously, we've got a lot of debris that has to come out of here as well. But all in all, the brain center, this is dramatically better. Look at this, and then look at this other one that we're going to be cleaning up. And again, I haven't done any servicing on this machine yet. So at some point, someone took this assembly out and they did a pretty doggone good job. There's still some stuff in here I can get off with the dental tool. But all in all, this is much, much cleaner than the other 201. In fact, let me look at our time. For time purposes, maybe we'll end up cleaning this one instead of the other one, although the other one would be more fun to get clean, wouldn't it? Because of how filthy it is. But you can see the depth that we went compared to what most people will do in servicing that. And a lot of folks, even after they service and clean it, they don't add the oil to here. This is actually an oil well. It's actually an oil well right in the center that helps to lubricate the drive gears below the Raceway. So you have to put oil in here, and then you have to also clean this out and then lubricate this with a nice base of kerosene inside of here as well. Get all that extra varnishing off there. But this, all in all, this is really quite good. Don't you agree? When you compare this to this one over here that belongs to Roni out of Nevada. Look at this stuff. Good gravy. Yeah, this one's much, much worse off. Yeah, we'll take the more difficult road and get this one tidied up, huh? This one is almost all the way done serviced anyway. So, but all this stuff otherwise would be hidden underneath the hook, and it would never ever be cleaned. Yeah, let's work on this one. We'll work on this one. There we go. I'll put on a little bit more music for us while I'm doing it, or maybe putting on music for me. I put on some Italian music. No idea why. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that horrible? So on this Raceway here, we can use a combination of cleaning approaches. The brushes are not going to be effective, but a Dremel with the appropriate attachment might do the job nicely. Let me see if I can take down this Dremel. See, we got a broom style brush on it, and we're going to be using it very carefully, staying away from the hooks that are here so that we don't damage them. But we're going to be swabbing this in here and trying to get that basin of the hook system all cleaned up. And this is probably the quickest way to do it, and we don't even have to use kerosene initially. The brushes will take it off straight away. Now we're going to switch to a different brush so we can get underneath the edge a little bit better. We'll be using this style brush right here. And then for the final touch up, we'll use this one where we'll be able to get into the tightest spots. And I'm using it at a very low setting, right around 2. Don't crank it way up. Keep it real low so you've got control over it. See the difference right there. Remember we talk about you have to clean the surface where those plates mount, because if you don't, it raises those plates up and then it makes the feed dogs less effective. So we're getting all that junk off of here to make sure that those plates are going to be all the way flush. My Italian music ran out. Oh, I don't have my notifications on. I got another text message. I apologize. I don't have my notifications on, so there's another text message and I didn't even see it. Hold on a second. Whoopsie. Oh, wow. 520. We had 526 people watching, apparently. 362. Wow. Very cool. Wow. Okay. What do I have for a real long one? Put on a little bit of music. Yuck. Ha. Just about done with the bobbin case. So the bobbin case is going to be one of the most essential parts of the Raceway. That's why I spend so much detailed time getting it cleaned up and polishing it and making sure that it's just absolutely silky smooth. But we just got done polishing it, so now we have to swab over it one last time. And this time I'm going to use kerosene again just to make sure we don't leave any residue behind. That one's nice and clean. We'll go ahead and use that one. And this one should be periodically, you should be removing the bobbin periodically, and you should be swabbing the inside, just like you're going to see me doing right now. Of course, it'll be in the machine, but mounted in the machine like this, you will want to swab the inside that we just polished and leave a residue of kerosene on there so that that bobbin is going to turn absolutely freely. And you can swab the rest of it as well. It's a great rust inhibitor and it cleans it very nicely as well. So swab the top, the bottom, the sides, any part of the bobbin case. And then we can go over it with a clean Q-tip and just lightly make sure we get the excess residue off. Kerosene is going to be there. We're not going to wipe it off. It just won't be on there too heavily. And eventually it will seat with our hook ring in there very nicely, won't it? Now we need to concentrate on this. Look at all the garbage on there. If you can see that or not. That's all filth on there right there. Top looks great for the most part. The bottom, not so much so. So we can use our polishing Dremel to get that cleaned up very easily and then go over it with kerosene to make sure that it's nice and clean. And again, don't turn this way up. Leave it down on low revolutions. Now I actually have my notifications on. I know that's Susie's notification, so let me check this out. Let's see here. Susie Item wants to know, when cleaning the hook system space, if there is any concern about getting debris in the oil well. There really isn't. The approach that we're using, and again, the oil well is going to be something that you irrigate regularly. I would recommend with kerosene. So if we do accidentally get any, a little remnant of some of this junk over here, for example, if we get a little bit of this in here somehow, and it goes into that little well right there in the middle, that kerosene is going to dissolve it. Kerosene has a wonderful quality of dissolving any debris that gets in the wrong place. And that's why I use it generally, other than Crystal Light. So putting a couple drops, probably about every 8 hours of sewing, you'll take your bobbin out and take your case out and just drop it down in that well. And the kerosene will, if you've ever had a real rusty tool that you thought was basically unsavable, if you get a little bucket of kerosene, K1 kerosene, like this stuff over here, basically camping kerosene, isn't it? But if you put that rusty tool in a bath of K1 12 hours, polishing agents like that, you'll be amazed at how much store that tool that seems like it's basically throwaway. So yeah, this does an excellent job. If it gets into that little well, it's going to eat away at that stuff and break it down very quickly, as long as you're servicing the machine regularly like that. And even with this in there, you should be able to, you can see how this will sit in there eventually. You should be able to reach that well very easily just by taking the bobbin case out. Yeah, great question. Very, very good question. But the process we use to clean this, I don't suspect that we got anything at all down into that well. Now you got me curious. Yeah, our dental tool is coming back squeaky clean, so I think we're in good shape. But that's a valid concern, and we should always be careful about where all that filth and debris that we're generating is going, shouldn't we? Even around here, we've got some excess that seems like it's trying to keep its grip on us, doesn't it? Even in that little area right around there. See that? No matter how clean we get our sewing machines, there's always a little bit more dirt trying to hide and get away from us, isn't there? So that was a great question. Very, very good. Very, very good question. Okay, so I think we've got a great hook system set up now. We've got a bobbin case that's ready to do the job. Now we need to concentrate on this hook ring that's going to ride on top of this and hold it in place. So let's go ahead and get this polished up as well. I don't know if you can hear the music, but I can hear the music, and it's nice to have something in the background other than just silence. So I'm probably going to put a little bit more music on for me. And you might be able to catch it too if the microphone, I'll rotate the microphone a little bit. Maybe the microphone is heading in the right direction. Let's see here. What else do I have? I think I have some marching music. Looking for one that's going to run a good long time. I've got a lot of polka music. Just imagine the 201 having roots to Germany as well. And we'll put on a little bit of polka music. All right, a little bit of polka. Now we're going to focus on this ring retainer, get this all tidied up. All that varnishing off of there. When you get near the let me just stop that for a second. When you get near the end here where the hook is, use a great deal of caution. Even in using a Dremel polishing tool, you'll only want to brush away almost like you're sharpening it, which to some degree you are, but never go against the tip like this with anything at all. That might dull this. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to catch that thread when it swings around as effectively. This has to be absolutely nice and sharp. Okay. Notice the singular direction again on the hook on the end. Don't come like this. So I'm just going to shut off the music for a second and highlight how I got that hook retainer ring back into place. I wanted to make sure that this was free moving. And then what I did is I put the ring in there and you saw me rotate it so that it snapped back into place again. In other words, I didn't try balancing it by pushing this out, pushing this out. You simply lay it on there, rotate it a little bit forward, and then it snaps nicely into place. Hopefully you could see that. So now we've got our retainer holding the ring here and here. And now we have to work on getting the rest of this put back together, which will be this part very, very quickly. So we can hold that finger in place so that our bobbin case doesn't rotate. But we have to get this cleaned up quite a bit first. It's looking kind of scary, isn't it? So we'll focus on getting this tidied up. We'll get this back into place. Then we'll focus on our feed dogs and reassemble the rest of the Raceway. And that'll pretty much do it for this live stream. I know I'm looking at the clock right now. We've been running about 3 hours and 20 minutes. I should be able to get the rest of this done pretty quick. And then you'll know how to take this apart and reassemble it. It's critical you know that so you can do the thorough cleaning on the Raceway for the 201. Yeah, get a closer shot to that so you can see what we just did. So again, we put that ring on here, got it nice and flush, and then we just rotated it back into place until it got into this position, snap and snap. Okay. It looks a lot different than when we started, doesn't it? I know Ronnie's going to be very pleased with how well the machine is going to operate now compared to how it was operating before. Had to do that to the music. I don't know if you could hear that or not. And what I'm doing right now is I'm adding a little bit of a kerosene slick surface so that that slide plate is going to move back and forth more freely, just absorbing the excess now. Knocking stuff over here. And the reason we go to the effort of polishing the screws is it makes it easier then to take this plate off the next time. It's not going to be binding with the varnishing and the gunk. They're going to be nice and clean. We've already dropped kerosene into those wells, so we're going to be able to inhibit rust. It'll just make it a lot easier the next time that they have to come out. Plus, we never leave dirt behind, right? So we're down to the feed dogs now, and we'll get those mounted shortly. And then we're just down to the cover plate. Just drop some kerosene down the holes for the feed dogs as well, so that they're going to be protected from rust and also come out much easier. And on the screws that hold the feed dogs, you want to make sure that that groove is nice and clean, so that you're getting that screwdriver all the way in. It's very easy to crack these, and it's very easy to skip off and to maybe damage the machine. So just get in there with a dental tool and clean that nice and out. Make sure you have all that junk out of there. Nice and tight. Okay, I'm gonna. Whoa, that's horrible. Yikes. All right, I'm gonna shut that off. So we've covered a lot of ground today, and guess what? There's gonna be a part 3. Ha ha! There's gonna be a part 3 because we still haven't done the servicing of the faceplate area, which is a lot more in depth on the 201-2 than most people might think. And then we also have to take apart the upper tension as well. And I'll show you how to disassemble that, clean it properly, and then reassemble it as well. So our final, well, I shouldn't say final, our semi-final part 3 will include this part of the machine, which also includes removing and calibrating the spring as well, taking apart the upper tension, properly cleaning, calibrating that. It's got 3 calibration points on it. There's additional cleaning that we'll do as well. And then I'm also going to be showing you a new tool that Susie brought my attention to. It's and some of you may already be using this tool, but I'll show it to you if I can find it somewhere on the table. Somewhere here. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. I'll also be showing you how you can use a tool like this that has a fiberglass component in it for cleaning up chrome, on any part of the machine for that matter. You could clean this chrome up here. You could clean around here. You could clean this with it. But the thing with this is you got to make sure if you're going to use this that you glove up, because otherwise you're going to get little pieces of fiberglass in your hand. And anyone that's ever worked with fiberglass and gotten it in their hand, you can testify to the fact that it's not comfortable at all. So, and I haven't used this extensively, but you're going to twist the little end like this. And there's our little, it looks very innocent, doesn't it? That little white tip there that's exposed now. And that's got fiberglass in it. So if you're going to use it to polish up anything, what could we use it to polish up? And then we'll do more of this the next time. Let's see here. I don't want to lose my final parts either. That'll be embarrassing, won't it? I'll clean this up, and then I'll put this on, and that'll be the last piece of our Raceway. You've seen all the other stuff, and hopefully this is helpful to see how we do all of that, and we get it back to a state now where that brain center is going to do its job better than it ever has. But use this stuff. You can polish. Let's see here. I'll move this out of the way. Never used it on a cereal plate before. That might be interesting. The cereal plate is really yellowed right now. Boy, that badge mark looks horrible, doesn't it? Look at that badge mark. It's got all kinds of crud and junk in it. Maybe we'll give this a go. I usually would polish this. Bring our little light over here. Yeah, it's kind of eating away. It's kind of eating away at the varnishing. What we want is we want a nice brass finish on that. But I can show you a faster way, even though this is super cool. It's super cool and it's doing the job, and it would be really good for finer pieces like this, maybe chrome pieces, just lightly going over it with this and getting some of that luster back on here. But on a piece like this, it's a little bit larger. What I do, get over here, rotate this back in. What I do for something like this is such, what do you call this? The eye candy, right? This is the eye candy on the machine. And right now it's not looking spectacular at all. It's got crud in here. It's just not looking very nice. What I do is I go back to my faithful kerosene. Oops, I'm pointing the camera the wrong direction. That's not very helpful. Put a little bit of kerosene on here. Rub it in with your finger. I'm going to keep my glove on because there's probably fiberglass on there now. Rub it in there. Already it's starting to break down. Remember I told you that kerosene eats away. It eats away at rust and crud. It's a crud eater. We should get t-shirts that say Cow Country Crud Eaters or something like that, and then go to large buffets and just make people wonder what the heck we're about. You know what I mean? But what I use then, once I rub the kerosene creates a barrier to friction, and it protects the delicate metal underneath so that I can then use a Dremel approach to really bring that luster back. And I'll just do a little bit of that in this live stream at the very end now so you can see what that might look like. First of all, I have to clean my brush again. Always clean your brush when you're using a Dremel to make sure that you don't start with junk on it. See that? And then with a real, if you can imagine like a feather light touch, you're going to gently go over that badge mark very gently. And again, we created that barrier with the kerosene to protect the metal. Very, very light touch, very light touch. And then assess how you're doing. Wipe it off with a cloth and see what impact we brought. just with a little bit of work and a lot more work to go, but take a look at that already and look at what we got off. It's starting to come back, isn't it? You can actually read it. It's not bright and shiny yet, but with a couple more layers. And I'm going to call the live stream finished now. I'll put some music on. And as you have to step away, but I'm just going to go over it a little bit more. And if you linger, I'll show you close to a final product on it. Close. And of course, I'm going to do it to polka music, right? Yes. Well, sort of. Maybe I'll do it to military music, because that polka music all of a sudden went Rocco Sacco. Let's see what I have here. Thought I had military on here, military marching music. Maybe I'm wrong. There it is. All right, God bless you guys. Probably not going to be live streaming on Saturday again, because the neighbor to Susie is going to be doing their roof, and it's going to be super loud. But you can keep an eye open maybe for this coming Tuesday again. And I'm going to be showing you a complete detailed cleaning on a featherweight. So if you own a featherweight and you're like, I wonder what Scott does to featherweights when they come in the workshop, you're going to get a good, clear picture of that. Not going to show you every secret, but I'll show you a lot of secrets. All right. So God bless. Take care. Thank you to the leaders for taking care of the family. Thank you to the family for popping in on a busy weekday with this never being announced. I didn't even talk about this on Facebook. And yet all of you, because of your love for vintage and your love for the family, showed up anyway. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you, and see you soon. All right. Military marching music. Ha ha! Not there yet, but getting close, getting close. Ha ha! Woo!